There have been a lot of articles and videos lately that are becoming more and more critical of Jordan Peterson. I've spent the last several days working on a series of videos that will begin to address some of the criticisms as a whole. I hope to have the first one up either tomorrow or the following day. Jordan Peterson spoke with Maajid Nawaz in the United Kingdom about the disgusting hit piece written by Ari Feldman that is currently up at the forward. When originally published, the article had a picture of Jordan Peterson with Hitler. They have since removed it and posted an apology, saying it was never their intent to equate Peterson with Hitler. But from the text of the article, this is difficult to believe. In Peterson's interview, he explains his frustrations with many of his critics who use tactics to misrepresent or discredit him instead of arguing with him or stating his real opinions. The article begins by claiming that Peterson is adored by white supremacists and conspiracy theorists, a typical guilt by association tactic, and claims that Sargon of Akkad is a white nationalist sympathizer. It continues that since Peterson's blog post in April even mentions IQ, this is an anti-Semitic dog whistle. It further states that Peterson's followers range from avowed white nationalists to frustrated young men looking for a scapegoat. Of course, that range includes everyone who follows Peterson. No one is left out of that group. If you follow Peterson, you range from avowed white nationalist to frustrated young man looking for a scapegoat. No exceptions. Here's Peterson speaking about the article directly, along with some insight into his critics.
Oh, yeah, well, that's very straightforward, and it happens to me all the time, but it's understandable. I am not a fan of the radical left. And I'm not a fan of
It's understandable they do it, or it's understandable one can analyze what they're doing?
Well, both. I mean, the reason that they do it is because, let's say that you have adopted a postmodern Marxist view of the world, and that you think that dividing people into their collective identities and viewing the world as a battleground between interest groups is the appropriate way of looking at the world. And reasonable. That's what a reasonable person would do. And I come along and say, look, not only is that unreasonable, but it's very much akin to these murderous doctrines that did tens of millions of people in the 20th century. Okay, but you hold that viewpoint. Now you have, you don't have very many options under those circumstances. If I'm reasonable, you have to contend with my argument. If I'm not reasonable, then you can just categorize me as not reasonable and ignore me. And the best way to categorize me as not reasonable is to assume that I'm on the farthest end of the political spectrum away from you as possible, along with the reprehensible Nazis and the alt-right types, and just assume that that's me. The problem is it's not me. And if it was me, I would have been taken down 2 years ago. And the proof that it's not me is that I have 300 hours of lectures online from my entire academic career, and I haven't said a single thing that anyone has ever found that's even remotely associated with a radical right-wing viewpoint. And quite the contrary. I don't like identity politics at all. And I don't care if the leftists are doing it or the right-wingers are doing it. It's reprehensible in my estimation. Now, people say, well, you go out after the left-wingers more. It's like, well, yeah, because they dominate the universities. And that isn't my opinion. That's well documented. These left-wing radical types can't even get their damn insults straight. It's like, really? I'm like Milo Yiannopoulos or Hitler? What kind of thinking is that? And first of all, and to use the casual comparison to someone like Hitler, I think that's an appalling ethical crime. You use that accusation under very, very specific circumstances when something extraordinarily serious and dangerous has happened, because otherwise you risk diluting the currency of the comparison.
The Forward didn't just post this one article on Peterson, and it wasn't just Ari Feldman either. An article from the previous week included the following. Lipstadt, who said she has not read Peterson's work, said that Peterson's statements on Jewish intelligence reminded her of Kevin MacDonald, a professor of psychology who the Southern Poverty Law Center has described as the neo-Nazi movement's favorite academic. MacDonald has written several books criticizing Jewish intellectual culture. Peterson links to a critique of one of MacDonald's books at the end of his blog post on Jewish intelligence. Lipstadt said that MacDonald's academic language obscures the anti-Semitism behind his opinions. She worries the same is true of Peterson. Well, isn't it great to quote someone who hasn't read any of Peterson's work and have them speak about an entirely different person and then worry that they may have the same opinions? The critique that Jordan Peterson linked to in his blog post completely distances himself from Kevin MacDonald. It's okay though. Just post garbage that fits your narrative. If you post false statements over and over again, people will begin to link anyone with prejudices that don't exist or views they don't have. Going back to Ari Feldman's article, it ends with this. Peterson Feldman is nowhere near as toxic as various other internet cultures like the incels who blame women and sometimes murder them because they're not having sex. Yet behind the father figure role he affects lie darker preoccupations with Hitler, Marxists, and the radical left on college campuses. That's where his teachings can provide fodder for conspiracy theorists and bigots. Peterson has posted about how the interview with Ari Feldman went on his website, but the real truth can be found, as Peterson said, by watching the hundreds of hours of lectures that Peterson has posted on YouTube. There is no anti-Semitism to be found. Ari Feldman is horrible as a journalist and as a person. As Peterson said, by calling out anti-Semitism where there is none, not only does it damage your own credibility, but it reduces the ability for everyone to call out real anti-Semitic behavior when it occurs. Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe. If you liked the video, be sure to leave a comment and hit that like button. If you didn't like it, please explain why. Open discussion is the only way to have a better understanding of differing views. Sharing this video on social media can help keep conversations alive. Now, here are a few other videos that you may be interested in.